Sometimes it feels like being a parent today means juggling more than just schedules and snacks. We're also navigating systems, schools, opinions, and a culture that seems to be debating our kids at every turn. God, don't we know it? But in the middle of all that noise, there's still us, just showing up, figuring it out, and trying to raise whole, healthy humans. Welcome to the Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am your host with the most, Tamara Eldridge. And around here, we make space for honest conversations, real reflection, and the laughs that keep us sane. And today will be no different. So let's get into it. Today's guest is someone helping parents navigate a shifting culture and an ever changing educational landscape. Chris Linder is an Atlanta parent, the author of Homeschool Remix, and a leader in hybrid homeschooling and ed tech who has been on the front lines of what many families, especially Black and Brown families, are facing as education becomes a cultural battleground. He combines the basics of traditional schooling with the flexibility families need, offering practical, accessible ways for parents to fill in the gaps schools often leave behind. Listeners, please help me welcome to the Nailed It Motherhood platform a soldier on the educational battlefield, Mr. Chris Linder. Hi, sir.
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here. I listen to your show. I think it's great. Just want to say thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, first and foremost, but thank you for showing up. I truly, truly appreciate you. I will say I appreciate you just showing up and emailing me because that's how you became a part of our guest list. You emailed me and you said, this is something that I really respect and appreciate that you have this platform for moms to be real and raw about. And I want to be able to share something for moms to really think about when it comes to education. And so I was like, this is my heart. This is my passion. So please, please come on. I kind of had to beg you after the first email, but I'm glad you came.
Yeah,
Yeah, you remember. You remember. And I'm
I'm gonna chalk it
glad,
up
so
to end of
glad
the
we did.
year, holidays, all that stuff. I'll blame that.
Hey, it life happens, lives, but we made it. We
Yep.
survived. And then I got sick. So, it is what it is. We're here. We're here today.
Are you
But
better now?
I'm so much better now. So
Okay.
much better. We are so glad that you're here. But I have to pause before we get into your journey, and it is going to be a good one from what I hear. But we have to take a moment and give our listeners what they came here for when it comes to me as a parent. And that is our Tavi tale, because they don't really care about me. They care about Tavia, my baby girl. So I have to give them the Tavi tale. And Chris, I think you might like this one. I really do. Today's Tavi tale, I'm going to call Simone Biles. And I'm going to call it Simone Biles because my baby girl is into gymnastics. She just started over the summer and she's really, really good at it. Like she started it, and from the moment she started, she just started excelling at it. And parents would be like, oh, how long has she been in? And I'm like, oh, she just started last week. And a month goes by. How long has she been in gymnastics? She just started. And they're just in awe because they're like, oh, well, so it's something that she's always really been into. She's always flipped. She never sits still, ever sits still. And I can recall even in my belly, like it was just nonstop. I would be laying down and she would be moving, and it would be like I remember taking video of my stomach just shifting. I'm like, this little girl will not sit still. But I'm learning now that this is a good thing. This is a skill set that she has, and she's so strong. But the funniest thing about it is that my boyfriend, he is in such awe of this ability. She's super strong. She's super talented and she can pick up pretty much anything she tries. She taught herself how to do a backflip recently. Like she'll just stand there and just do a back bend and then just flip herself over and she's 6. So it's just like how did you learn how to do that? But I have to like kind of tap him on the shoulder and bring him back to reality because she's not supposed to be flipping in the house. So he's like just smiling like she's just so good. And I'm like, she's in the house. She's flipping in the house. I need you to get over how good she is. She's flipping in the house, but she's just so good. She's so talented. I'm like, you have to understand there are still boundaries and there are still rules that have to apply. The girl is flipping in the house. There are things that can break in the house. So he will take every opportunity that he gets to let her see Simone Biles and watch gymnastics so he can just keep
Great.
pumping her up and showing her what you can be. And I almost don't even have to bother because he's so into it with her because he's
Yeah.
so amazed. So I kind of just take her to practice. I definitely try to build her confidence up, but I also like to bring her down to reality sometimes. So that is my topic tale today. My girl she's definitely got it. So in 10 years when she's going to the Olympics. Chris Linder, you heard it here first. So thank you for listening to my Tommy tale.
Well, I wish her luck, you know? I
Thank
think it's great that, she's got people behind her that are both trying to keep her grounded, but also showing her what's possible. That's
Yes.
all.
Yes. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. It's beautiful to just be able to have these opportunities as Black and brown people because what, 25, 30 years ago, just to know that gymnastics costs what it does, I I don't know that we would have been able to have these opportunities, afford these opportunities, and have these types of access to just say, we would have just done it at the playground and kept it moving, right?
Right. Right.
Let's be honest, that's what I did. It wasn't happening for me because my mom wouldn't have been able to afford that. All right. So again, thank you again so much for listening. I appreciate you validating my baby story. And it is now time for us to hear why we came. For your story of homeschooling. You started off as a classroom instructor and you felt like there was a disconnect. Am I correct?
That you're exactly right. There was a definite disconnect in the things that um both the things that the state or the curriculum were having me teach and the experiences that my students were getting. And then as a parent, and I'll kind of frame this and back up, but as a parent, I was noticing the same kind of disconnect between what my two daughters were learning in school or not learning or being taught in school, and the things that they should have been learning in school, the things that they would use practically for their life beyond school, things that they weren't getting. So I had always noticed this gap between them. But to back up all the way, I had a very interesting upbringing when it came to education. When I started in school, I went to a small private charter school that instead of a traditional classroom where you have a teacher and you have a number of students and they're all like focused on what the teacher's teaching them, we worked in individual cubicles um, on we worked at our own pace in little magazine type textbooks called Paces. And we uh, just basically whenever we had a question, we had a little flag, we'd put it in the top of our desk, and the teacher would come around to our cubicle and answer our question. But beyond that, first grade through sixth grade for me was working at my own pace, um, in given subjects, and just basically figuring things out on my own. Um, there was a definite uh, uh, mismatch as far as social kind of, uh, I would say, just the way I interacted socially with my peers, because the only times that we really would interact would be at recess or at lunch. um, you didn't get the normal classroom kind of goings on, but all in all, I think it gave me a good baseline for my studies. I didn't see the inside of a traditional classroom until middle school, where I went to a private middle school that had excellent teachers, and they really taught me how to think critically, how to find answers for what I was looking for in the text, how to respond to the text in written ways and express myself through the written word. Um, for seventh and eighth grade, I had a really um, great opportunity. And you were talking about your daughter, having opportunities that we didn't have. Um, for my middle school experience, I really had great opportunities to learn in a different way, um, and to kind of learn skills that I carried through high school and college and beyond. When I went to high school, um, it was finally a public high school with uh, all the normal bells and whistles that you'd see on TV, and I was like, oh, this is what regular school is like. And but my school actually had a radio station, and I got into radio broadcasting for a while, and loved that. And that actually became my career after college for a long time. Um, I went to a small college and majored in communications. I didn't really consider becoming a teacher, although my aunt had suggested that that's the thing that you should go to school for, become a teacher, and then you'll always have that to fall back on. So I minored in education, but my major was communications, literature, and mass media. And so after college, I pursued radio because I felt like, okay, this is what I want to do. Uh, I want to sit in a room. I want to play records. I want to, talk to people on the air and do this all day long. That's my dream job. And I did that for a few years. And honestly, it was both the best time of my life and also sometimes incredibly boring. And so I got to a point where I was thinking to myself, okay, I can't do this for the next the next 2 decades. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I've got to see what else is out there. I had this wanderlust. I had this desire to see what was going on in the world besides just this. So I got a book. The book was called Work Your Way Around the World. And in it, it described how you could get a job teaching English in other countries, Japan, Korea, or you could get a job picking fruit in Guatemala or Venezuela when it's time for fruit picking season, or you could do all these other things all around. If you just wanted to be a world traveler, you could get jobs in season all around the world. The only thing I wanted to do really was teach English because it didn't involve too hard. I thought it didn't involve hard labor, but it was something that, hey, I'm a native English speaker. I can do that. So I bought a ticket for South Korea, and I went, and within a week I had found a job teaching English at a hagwon. A hagwon is like a small private uh like institution for learning, but kind of like what we call a cram school, kind of like extra school for students who are trying to learn English or trying to learn test prep or math or what have you. So I taught English as a native English speaker, um, and I taught for 2 years. And I taught uh, most of my students were college student age. Some were like older, like businessmen or housewives, and some were younger, maybe middle school or high school age. But most of them were college student, and I had a great time teaching them. And I realized that if a student is really, if they see the benefit to what they're learning, they'll be really motivated to do well. I never had a problem with students who were worried about uh, or just not motivated or just didn't care, because English was something that all of my students realized that it was something that they'd have to learn to do well in college and to do well in their future careers. So there was always something driving them to learn. So they were very hard studiers, hard workers, and it was a great teaching experience. When I felt homesick for America, I came back and got back into radio broadcasting, but I always kind of either substitute taught or kept teaching like on the back burner as that career next step. And that paid off after about 10 years of working in radio. I transitioned into teaching in the classroom and taught world literature at 10th grade level, taught speech and debate. Um, and again, I had great students, but a lot of times they were not the motivated students that I had gotten used to in South Korea. These were uh, high schoolers who didn't really want to be there. They so it was kind of a struggle sometimes to both manage the classroom and to keep them interested in what we were, trying to get them to understand, and also to really bridge that gap between the core of knowledge and the usefulness of that knowledge, trying to trying to get them to understand that this knowledge that they're picking up is going to be useful to them in the future. So so that was the challenge, but I realized that I was a better teacher than I was a babysitter, and and then I kind of went back into um, media, but I went into the technical side of media and became a web developer and a technical project manager, working on systems of getting things done and organization and kind of the technical side of all that. Um, my wife, who was also a teacher, she wrote um, a few books on Common Core and books on using anchor charts in the classroom. And we started doing professional development for teachers around the country. So we would go to a city and lead their teachers into in kind of a writing jumpstart workshop so that they could teach writing to their students or use anchor charts for their students. Um, and we had a lot of success doing that. And we were, uh, we were more successful, but we did notice that there was an increasing gap in what students would learn or be taught, and the things that they were actually needing but not getting. And um that kind of was made more real when our own two daughters uh grew up and entered middle school and high school. And we notice, and probably a lot of your viewers notice this, is that critical thinking is just not something that's taught in schools. Practical life skills, the days of home ec and things like that, not really, taught a lot in schools anymore. Um, there's so much that kids aren't getting: financial literacy, um, and just basic ways of being able to express themselves through writing and so on, are just falling by the wayside. And people are starting to, or teachers are being forced to teach to the test. And I believe that's kind of, um, I can go off on a whole other tangent about how that's probably by design, that, the U.S. education system is based on uh, bringing kids to a fifth or sixth grade reading level and not giving them any critical thinking, and then graduating them, because that makes a good worker, that makes a good laborer, doesn't necessarily make a good entrepreneur or executive. But that's not the point. They really want to make a good, massive labor force. So I I wanted to kind of supplement the things that my daughters weren't getting in school with lessons that would teach them critical thinking, that would teach them financial literacy, and all of these other skills that they weren't getting in school. So I came up with a framework for a system called Homeschool Remix, and that's what my hybrid homeschooling is all about. It's a way of keeping your kids enrolled in school and then supplementing what they're not getting in school with targeted home lessons that teach those skills, and then interweave critical thinking throughout all of those skills. And that's what hybrid homeschooling is all about.
Awesome.
Oh, thank God you're there.
This is exciting, this framework. The story was very valuable, and I appreciate you sharing it. The first question I want to ask, because this is a targeted podcast,
Mm-hmm.
is what did it look like in practice with your daughters? Homeschool Remix.
Okay, so what really tipped it off, what really got it going, and planted the seed in my head, was my daughter was having trouble in algebra. And I am not a math person at all. So I had to figure out a way, and she's a smart girl. I had to figure out a way to get her to the level of all the other students in the algebra class, um, so she wouldn't get, dropped down to the basic math class.
Mhm.
Um, because with a lot of, how we always say if you're black or brown, you got to do things like, twice as good as
Yeah.
everybody else just to have that equal footing.
Yep.
I knew
Just
that if she got dropped down to the basic math class, that would be it. She'd be on that track for the rest of her high school career.
mhm.
She'd be like in the basic math track, which, nothing wrong with that. But, I would just wanted her to have better opportunities. So her getting into algebra freshman year was great. I wanted to keep her in algebra, which meant that I had to do some algebra, you know, kind of figure out some ways of getting her some algebra training. And I don't have a lot of money for tutors, so it wasn't about trying to get like an algebra tutor. So I found a homeschool curriculum that was similar to the curriculum that I had grown up with, going to school first through sixth grade. It was kind of like the updated version of that. And so I worked with her using that curriculum,
Mhm.
and got her to pass algebra with, B's and A's. But I realized that, okay, so if I can figure this out, I can figure out how to teach any subject and get them, the subjects that they're not getting in school, which, like, the one I really go back to a lot is financial literacy, because I think that that's really important. But it's for some reason the first thing to go by the wayside in high school education. Like, we're raising kids who are more ready to handle an active shooter than to balance a checkbook. Financial literacy, especially for marginalized students, black and brown kids, they're not getting any form of financial literacy. And again, I think that that's by design. I think that if you're just happy with whatever job you can get after high school, then that turns you into a good laborer. And according to the Department of Education, they've fulfilled their job. They've fulfilled their promise to you. But for my kids, I wanted something better. I wanted to at least give them choices so that they could do other things. So I found ways to implement financial literacy, found ways to implement kind of a real cultural history and cultural art appreciation, because that's another thing that is just getting erased and getting like thrown out of schools. Um, any kind of uh, art and literature that may not fit the exact mainstream of what people want. If it'll raise a question, or if it'll make somebody think, then now it seems like, yeah, we don't need that in school. We need to get that out of school. Uh, so I really wanted to find ways of getting that back into the education system, the personal education system. And that's what homeschool remix framework was all about. I wanted to just remix education.
I appreciate that. What are people saying?
Um, the feedback that I've gotten from working with different parents, um, is that it's something that's really needed. but a lot of parents are either afraid because one of two things. Either they feel that they're not smart enough to teach their kids. They feel that it's something that's, way above, their level of education. What I tell people is, look, um, I'm not a mathematician, but I can teach my daughter algebra and algebra 2. So, it's not a matter of you not knowing the subject matter. It's a matter of you being able to teach your child how to think critically and how to find answers. You're teaching them how to learn. You're not just
Mhm.
teaching them facts and figures and formulas and things that you probably don't know. You need to teach them, hey, this is how to find out the answers to these questions, how to find out these problems, how to solve these problems. Um,
Right.
so a lot of parents are reticent because they're like, oh, I don't know a lot about science. I barely got through high school myself. And I'm like, yeah, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that you're not smart enough to teach your kids, so just leave it all up to the state. And that's the wrong way of looking at it. The other the other reason that parents are reticent is that they just don't have a way of getting the resources, or they think that it's too expensive. And a lot of cases, um, to get a full-time homeschool curriculum, it is very expensive, and it is much easier to just leave your kids in school. And that's why the hybrid homeschooling framework is so beneficial, because it lets you get the advantage of that structure and the socialization of the traditional school, and you just pick those key subjects that they're not getting enough of in school, and you're just finding curriculum for that, or you're finding lessons, and developing a lesson plan for those particular subjects. And that's a lot cheaper than buying a full off the shelf curriculum. Um, so, when I work with parents, just being able to identify, what's holding them back, and being able to, hold their hand a little bit and walk them through it and say, okay, I get why you're feeling this. Here's why, or here's how you can step over that hurdle. Here's how you can overcome that. And a lot of parents are just like, oh, okay, I never really thought of it that way. Yeah, that makes sense. And they can go do that. And the real thing that's a game changer now is AI. And when I first started writing the book, it wasn't really something that parents could really take advantage of. But now there's really no excuse not to, um, design design your own lesson plans using AI, using Chat GPT. Um, the one caution that I always give is that, uh, your AI of choice will probably hallucinate, so uh, you can't assume that once you've made a lesson plan that everything in it is accurate. You have to double and triple check, and make it show its sources, so that you can ensure the accuracy. But as far as the structure, and especially if you use something like the homeschool remix framework, you're actually teaching critical thinking. And what that looks like is, you're not just giving them a passage to read and then giving them multiple choice questions. What you're doing is you're giving them a passage to read, then asking them open ended questions, and having them explain and come to conclusions about what they've read, so that they can internalize and find the real lesson inside of whatever that passage is on whatever topic or subject that you're teaching. So,
Yeah. I I want to go back to your beginning.
cool.
Um because you said that when you were in 1st through 5th grade, you were in a cubicle basically doing the work on your own, and you were really building and developing those critical thinking skills and just kind of flagging the teacher when you had those questions. Were you drawing from that experience as a child when you were developing this framework of that critical thinking? Did you like unpack those formative years when you were thinking about what your children were lacking?
I don't know that I did a lot of unpacking of those earlier years. Um, Other than finding an updated version of that curriculum that I had used back then, um, those formative years in me, I think, just gave me a different outlook on what education should and can be. But also it made me personally just look at everything, just look at life a lot differently. Like I naturally am uh an independent person. I'm comfortable with, you just give me a task and come back a day later or 2 days later, and I've figured out how to do it.
Mhm.
And if I need help, I'll seek out help. But I'm very self-directed, and that's a result of that. I didn't make the homeschool remix framework based on that level of independence, because students have different learning styles, and those learning styles can actually change based on what subjects they're studying, what their comfort level. So
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent of meeting your student where they are, based on whatever subject that you're teaching. And some students do better independently. Some students do better with experiential education. Um, going out and actually going to a museum and seeing things up close, or experiencing things. Um, I think figuring out, and I would say that a parent is a child's best teacher, because they know, just like your kids know what buttons to press and make you mad, you know what buttons to press to make them go aha and learn something better. You know that innately. You just have to listen to that inner voice and be able to relate to your kids on a way that a teacher who's in charge of 25 different kids, every hour of the day through the day, they can't hope to reach your child as closely as you can.
Right.
So, you know, that, more than anything, more than the independence that I would have gotten from my experience as a student, that more than anything defines and drives the homeschool remix framework. And the the secret sauce really is the creative thinking. And creative thinking needs to be, it's not its own subject, it's not its own thing. It needs to be interwoven through each subject, and it's the way that you teach, not necessarily what you teach. And like I mentioned, open-ended questions is a way of getting them to think and internalize and process critically. Longer form writing assignments or multimedia assignments is another way of getting them to take whatever uh, nuggets that they've learned, and to be able to process that and basically teach someone else. That's what critical thinking is all about.
So I have one final question before we transition to our game. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm excited to look into this because I think I'm at that age where my daughter is still very much in the critical thinking stage at such a young age. And I still have that ability that she is in those years where she wants to absorb everything. So I can still teach her financial literacy. I can still teach her those practical life skills because she just wants to be up under me all the time. So, do you offer like a schedule for this hybrid framework? You send the kids to school. What does that look like when they come home from school? Do we do lessons after school, after homework, or is this a weekend thing where we set aside time on Saturdays? What are some of your options for scheduling lesson plans around these these essential topics that are necessary for your entrepreneurs, your critical thinkers, your people that don't just want to be laborers?
Yes. So the answer is yes, all of the above. The beauty of the framework is the flexibility. You're able to say, okay, some states require you to be in school at least 2 days a week. Some probably all 5 days a week. It's up to you. There's nothing saying that you can't homeschool your kids. Um, but if you leave them in school for the full week, maybe hybrid homeschooling looks like a 45-minute lesson every day, or maybe an hour or two on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then maybe a longer time on Saturdays, maybe 3 or 4 hours on Saturday or 2 hours on Saturday. It's really flexible, and it's based on what you and your student, your child, um, feel comfortable with. I'm really big on having the child, in on the planning process,
Mhm,
because it helps with buy-in. It helps
mhm.
with getting them on board with doing the work. If they were the ones to come up with the schedule, if they were the ones to come up with how much time they're going to devote to this or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing uh, is motivation is probably one of those key things that people have trouble with in the beginning. I'm a big proponent of cash. I think that allowance should always be tied into grades. Um, my girls will tell you I don't pay for I don't pay for D's. So anytime a progress report, you might miss your allowance because of your grades. And I mean, and that works both ways. It's a carrot and a stick. You can give a person a performance bonus, you know, for getting A's or for doing well in whatever assignment, whatever assessment that you decide to use for your hybrid homeschooling. So, it's very flexible, and it really needs to be custom tailored to you and your child's needs.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I do want to take this time to thank you for coming on and sharing. So, listeners, please make sure you check out Homeschool Remix so that you can think about if this is something that you would be interested in. This is not something that you have to do, but maybe just pull a couple lessons and consider some critical thinking, some creative thinking, some practical life skills that you want to intertwine into your students' everyday schooling. These are critical skills that our students are kind of missing in the educational curriculum these days. And I can tell you that as an educator, they're not getting everything that we know that they need to soar in this world. So check him out. He did a phenomenal job today, despite our technical challenges. Thank you again for showing up. I appreciate you sharing your story. But
Thank you
Chris,
for having me.
you're so welcome. Do you want to try to push through and play a game with me today?
Yes, yes, please. I've been looking forward to the game. Yes.
Yay! I'm so excited. So here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to add any more technology to this browser, and I'm not going to put the timer on here. I'm going to use my phone and put the timer on my phone. But I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock while I explain tea time, because it is time to play tea time. Tea time is a game of rapid fire. I have a bucket full of questions. Some of them are deep, some of them are just for fun, most of them are just for fun. But Chris has 3 minutes to answer as many questions as he can so that we just get a little bit more insight into who he is. So, listeners, are y'all ready? Yeah. Chris, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. I'm so excited. 3 minutes on the clock. I will hit start and we shall begin. The first question is, what is the title of your biopic?
A The Life of a Critical Thinking Master.
I like it. Which emoji do you use the most?
Um, it's either the cool sunglasses emoji or the pizza emoji.
Yes. Okay, so here's another fun one. Name your life's Broadway play. They're very similar.
uh, Chris, the Department of Education Slayer.
I like that. Where's your dream vacation spot?
Um, right now it's Portugal.
Oh, okay.
So,
What is your guilty pleasure?
um, binging television shows from the 90s and 2000s.
Not mad at you at all. What season of life are you in right now, and what is it teaching you?
Autumn, and it's teaching me to uh, prepare my storehouses for winter.
That's actually quite deep. Quite deep. What small things bring you joy?
Um, honestly, it's two things. It's my back deck and brisket on my smoker.
Yes. I'm going to imagine brisket on your smoker on your back deck.
Yes.
Okay. what
I mean,
always
yeah.
what
I guess it's
always
one thing. It's my back deck with the smoker and brisket on it. So yeah.
yes. What always makes you giggle?
um, I have a Shiba Inu, and for some reason, whenever I'm in the kitchen and she hears me rustling some plastic, opening something, she can be on the second floor and she rushes down and, with this optimistic kind of stare, just hoping that it's meat. So,
That is so cute. Okay, well, thank you so much. That was your time.
awesome.
I had one more question, but I enjoyed that story about what makes you giggle. That was fun to listen to, and that probably would make me giggle too. So thank you for playing tea time. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed listening to your answers. I say
I
we,
did.
like there's like three of us in the it's too funny. I embodied my listeners.
I love it. I love it.
Well, Chris, I really do want to thank you again for joining us on Nailed It Motherhood podcast. We always love bringing a dad to the podcast, especially a dad with your perspective of being in the classroom to saying, hold up, something ain't right. Let's fix something here. You have had quite the career life, the life cycle, I'll say. And I will also say that I was a communications major and studied broadcast journalism. And my first job was a voiceover artist for 6.5 years. So we
Oh,
have
nice.
something in common. I fell into education as a substitute teacher, so that was
Yeah.
fun, but it was definitely fun listening to your journey into education. So at this time, I would love to give you back the floor so that you can share any words of wisdom or encouragement that you have for any parents, whether it be dad, whether it be mom, or anybody who is raising kids, especially those who are considering homeschooling their kids, or might be on the fence. Like, do I take my kids out full time? Da 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 da. What would you like to share with us today?
Um, the one thing I want to share is don't stress. It's it, it's really easy to fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, if I'm going to be a homeschooler, I've got to teach everything right. I've got to do everything right. I've got to pack their day with lessons. I can't let them, miss out on anything." If you just take a step back and focus on teaching the fundamentals of how to learn. If you teach your kid how to learn, that's 80-90% of the battle right there. The facts and figures, the formulas, all that stuff will come. Just focus on teaching them how to learn and igniting that spark of curiosity, and you'll be fine, and your kids will be fine. So don't stress.
I love those words of encouragement. And I think that is something that we all need to take, especially me. We all need to
No,
take that.
me too. Me too.
um, I, it actually reminds me of something that you said that I did write down. And I just love the fact that you said if they see the benefit, they'll be motivated to do it. And that kind of ties up just this thing called parenting. Like there is this huge benefit of being a parent. It's the success of our children.
Yes.
And so if we can just be reminded that we pour into them all of this greatness and all of these beautiful things, and these reminding them that they're good people, reminding them that they can, reminding them that this life can be greater for them, then they will be motivated because
Yeah.
we poured all of these good things into them. And so I'm taking what you said about what you learned over in a completely different country about how they were inspired by your teaching. And I'm going to use that in my parenting journey. I'm going to be, I'm going to benefit, and I'm going to pour in goodness into my child. And I'm going to allow that to motivate me to be a good parent, which will therefore motivate her to be a good person. So thank you for that. At this
Great.
time, I do have a question for you. And I just want to know how people can connect to you and what is next for you. What are you doing after Homeschool Remix?
So we're they can connect with us with homeschoolremix.com, or following us on Facebook at Homeschool Remix, or Blue Sky at Homeschool Remix, or Substack at homeschoolremix.substack. homeschooling.com. We're developing an app for hybrid homeschool parents and students. We have a another application that's transitioning into this new application called the Homeschool Remix Mixtape. And what that is basically a curated collection of lessons for teens to teach critical thinking and in a number of different subjects. So that will be integrated with this this app that we're working on now, and we're looking at coming out with that in second quarter of this year. And that's what we're working on next.
Okay, mixtape for teens. I love it. I see 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little retro,
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. So, this is the part of the episode where I ask everybody the same questions because I'm a sort of a data geek because I worked in the data department at one point in the school district. So I have 3 questions that I ask everyone. So I'm not going to be any different with you because you are the homeschool remix king. So Chris, I have to ask you, is parenting hard?
Yes.
Yes, you said that without hesitation. But are your daughters still standing?
Yes, they are, and thriving.
Yes, thriving. Okay. So what do you want to proudly tell our guests today?
This dad is nailing it.
Nailing it. Chris Linder. He's nailing it, y'all. And we're going to empower him too. He's doing a darn good job in his job as dad. If you like this episode and you want to see more personal parenting journeys like that of Chris Linder, please don't forget to follow us, like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. So thank you all and have a great day. Bye.